The next PS5 firmware update is here. Sony just announced some Gran Turismo advancements in AI in the most Sony way possible. The next Assassin's Creed just leaked, and we finally got definitive word from Microsoft on what's going to happen with Call of Duty and other Activision franchises on PlayStation. We've got a ton of PlayStation news to talk about today, so let's just jump right into it. So earlier this morning, Sony AI, like a division of Sony, announced that together with Polyphony Digital, the people who make Gran Turismo 7, they've developed a new sort of AI that they're going to use in the game to make some really smart enemy driver. I'm just gonna call them enemy drivers, even though that seems like a weird word for like a racing game. They're not really your enemies, right? But yeah, we're gonna call them enemy drivers here. Their AI they've developed has like deep learning capabilities, and it played the game for a really long time and learned how to play it, and then they invited in some of the best drivers in the Gran Turismo community and had them face off against this AI that they're calling Sophy, and this AI Sophy was able to beat some of the best people in the Gran Turismo community. Now, we've seen stuff like this before with the Forza series on Xbox. They have a thing called Drivatars where it scans the way your friends drive on your friends list on Xbox, and it kind of imports their player profile into the game. But because of the people usually play Forza, the Drivatars that get imported into your game are straight up the most aggressive enemy AI of all time. Like sometimes when you're playing Forza Horizon 5 and you're in a race, it feels like you're playing Burnout, and the only way to actually beat these Drivatars is to T-bone them straight into a wall, so they have to go like back up to full speed from zero, so you can just inch ahead and barely get first place against them. They are like so aggressive, and honestly I could see the AI, if it's actually learning from players in Gran Turismo, being a little bit toned down because it's not an open world racing game that's arcade focused. It's more simulation-y, so if it's learning from people playing Gran Turismo, you know, a little bit more refined of a driver, it'll probably be a little less aggressive than the stuff you see in Forza Horizon 5. But man, that game is a war zone. I just gotta talk about it more. It's crazy. I would love to see this type of AI work its way into first-person shooters or third-person action games, you know, Sony's bread and butter. Like, let's get some really tactical, really smart enemy AI loaded up into these games. Like, I don't know if you guys, obviously, it's an Xbox game, so you might not have played it, but the early point of Halo's beta with the multiplayer, you could only play against bots, and it seemed like they were learning from players because they started teabagging you. They were absolutely ruthless. Like, it was kind of fun because it felt like just one step below actually playing against a really good human player. So if they can work that into single player games and really get some advanced AI, like they'll flank you, they'll figure out where you are, maybe they'll even use some of your own tactics against you. Like, take some of the mindlessness out of these open world games where you're kind of just checking boxes, doing X, Y, and Z, and sort of tuning out while a podcast plays. That would be a big improvement on the overall world, I think. And starting with the driving game makes sense because it's so constrained. You're going in a big circle. There's only a few different drivers on the track. There's everything there right where it's supposed to be, and you can just kind of keep up with it as it goes along. So it makes sense to me that this stuff is starting in a driving game. Based on an interview with Sony's best friend Wired, though, it seems like they're going to use this AI to look outside of gaming. They're talking about using it to help tune autonomous cars and do self-driving type stuff. They're basically saying this AI is going to learn from our super realistic cars in the game, and we're going to apply that to the real world. It's kind of cool. It seems a little bit like science fiction to me. Like, I'm sure that this AI will be used in self-driving cars in the future, right? But it'll be a much more advanced version of it than what's running on a PlayStation 5. We finally have direct confirmation from Microsoft on what they're going to do with Activision Blizzard. So the real quick recap here is that after they bought or said they were going to buy Activision Blizzard, everyone was like, what are you going to do with Call of Duty and all these other games like Diablo 4 that you could just make exclusive if you wanted to? And they said, don't worry, we've got some contracts in place. We are going to honor those contracts, which again was super vague because it made people think that once these contracts are up, Call of Duty then becomes an Xbox exclusive, which honestly is a fair way of thinking. But because of the antitrust attitude that the government is apparently having against Microsoft, they came out today and basically said, no, in the future, no matter what, we will keep Call of Duty and other Activision IPs not exclusive to Xbox. They will still come to PlayStation, they will still come to Nintendo Switch. Don't worry guys, do not worry government, we can totally buy Activision Blizzard and run them right. It's okay, it is definitely not a monopoly. Another reason for this could be Sony buying Bungie, because that's a huge developer that makes a huge game on the Xbox. Like, as much as people say Destiny 2 is a dead game, it is constantly ranking very high in both Steam, Xbox Live, and PSN. Like, it is nowhere near a dead game. So if Sony did decide to take Destiny off of Xbox consoles, that would be be a huge blow for Microsoft in the sense that Destiny 2 is a microtransaction festival. It has so many different skins you can buy. You can do transmog, but you have to buy little resources for it. Like, there's a ton of ways to spend money in Destiny. And even though Sony owns Bungie and the Destiny IP, every time they sell any of these microtransactions on the Xbox store, Microsoft keeps 30%. So it would really hurt them to lose an IP as big as Destiny and pretty much any Bungie IP going forward. At least with Sony buying Bungie, they have a reason to do it, and Bungie also has a reason to be bought. Like, Bungie wants access to Sony Pictures. They want to make Destiny into more than a video game franchise, and Sony, who just made $1 billion on Spider-Man No Way Home, is probably sitting there like, yeah dude, go make your movies, go make your TV shows, make whatever you want, make us money on your Destiny IP. And then Sony's saying, because we're buying you, you can teach our developers how to make live service games, because every other live service game was apparently made in a bubble, like The Division 2, like Avengers. With Activision, I don't really know what the end game is there with Microsoft. Like, do they just want to own Call of Duty so they can wield it over Sony's head and make money off of the biggest gaming IP in the industry? They said that they might take it from a yearly release and turn it into a biannual release. It seems like they have ideas to put it on the Switch from that statement they released today. Of course, they're getting IP like Hexen that they can give back, and Quake that they can give back to Bethesda. So there's some weird stuff going on there. They're obviously getting a lot more IP out of the deal with Activision than Sony is with Bungie, but man, it's just getting weird. I know that Sony basically has to respond and buy another big publisher at this point, because Microsoft could just buy everyone up and then they could say, yeah, you can keep these games on PlayStation, but you got to put our Game Pass on it. And I don't think anyone really wants that at the end of the day. That's just not a good future I see for the industry. And the thing I bring up that I don't see a lot of other people saying is that Microsoft is really microtransactioning up a lot of these games that are free on Game Pass. Like, Halo's store is absolutely nuts with its prices. They've gotten better at it, but the difference between the items you can earn in the game and the items you can buy is a complete joke. Like, I was playing the campaign and I was finding these lockers that had cosmetics in them, and it made it seem like, oh, I was getting so many different armor skins and armor plating and all these different like cool looks for my character. No, even though they're called Mjolnir caches, that makes it seem like armor, I was getting like emblems and paint and like little keychains for my gun. Like, nothing actually cool. But then you tab over to the store and there's some sweet samurai armor there. Like, that's completely out of whack, because if you're putting a AAA game on Game Pass, there's no way to really recoup that dev cost unless you're also selling microtransactions on the side. And Sony, for the most part, has avoided the microtransactioning up of their games. And I know they're going to probably get there with these 10 live service games they're making, but I don't know. I just feel like Sony's smarter than they're giving credit for on stuff like this. And I really wish people would notice more how microtransaction-y these huge games are getting on the Microsoft store. Like, don't even get me started on Gears 5. The way the multiplayer was laid out in that game. But at the end of the day, it is good that Call of Duty is going to stay on PlayStation going forward. It's a little bit different than the Bethesda deal because Call of Duty is just so big, right? You can't really afford not to have it on PlayStation, but getting the confirmation is good to hear. I'm not going to complain about that. Between NFTs, every game becoming a battle royale, and just Assassin's Creed never seeming to end, Ubisoft seems like they're living on a completely different reality than pretty much every other game developer or publisher out there. Assassin's Creed comes out and they're like, yeah, we tried to make this one shorter, and then in reality, it's basically the infinitely long Assassin's Creed. Like, I don't know anyone who is able to beat Assassin's Creed Valhalla in a reasonable amount of time. The game seems like it goes on forever, and we know very soon we're getting a 40 to 50 hour expansion, which may as well be a standalone game, called Dawn of Ragnarok, where you play as Odin. And I'm gonna be real, it looks really cool. It looks like if you took Assassin's Creed and mixed it with God of War. I'm into that idea, but everyone's kind of wondering how long we're going to have to wait between that expansion and the next game, which is supposedly called Assassin's Creed Infinity. It's going to be another reinvention like Assassin's Creed Origin was, and the rumor is it's going to be a live service platform where you'll be able to go to different time periods and play as different assassins. It sounds cool. I'm sure Ubisoft will find some way to screw it up. I'm just not really into the idea of giving them the benefit of the doubt at this point in time. But the craziest thing about all that is, in between Dawn of Ragnarok and then Assassin's Creed Infinity, PSReady, there was apparently going to be yet another expansion for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which already has had 2 DLC expansions that were pretty big. And as they were working on this expansion, they realized that it was good enough or big enough to become its own standalone game. And that's kind of scary at first, because if you look at Dawn of Ragnarok, that's a 40 to 50 hour new campaign in a new location, and you're like, if that's not enough to become its own standalone game, what's going on with this new Assassin's Creed game that started out as an expansion? But if you read into it, it actually sounds really cool. So it's apparently going to focus on the character Basim from Assassin's Creed Valhalla. He was really cool. I got basically over to England and had a few story beats with him. I never actually finished the story in that game because it is so insanely long, but I did think he was a cool character. And the most important thing of all is that this is not going to take place in a massive open world map. It's basically going to take place in a map that's like the size of a region in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And the cool thing is the location is apparently Baghdad, which all sounds really cool. It's apparently going to be a prequel to Assassin's Creed Valhalla as well. It just sounds like a nice change of pace that's bringing us back to Assassin's Creed 1. And it's supposed to be stealth focused and not an open world side quest filled checkboxy RPG. And that makes sense because they built that social stealth system into Assassin's Creed Valhalla and then totally didn't utilize it. Like, you could use it, but it was definitely underserved. They basically seem to have put it in because people were asking for it to come back so much. But now that it's in the game, it makes sense for them to make an expansion that's more stealth focused with an actual character who's more like what we're used to in Assassin's Creed. It kind of bugs me that this is being treated as a stopgap offshoot that's coming out between a big expansion and the next game, which is going to be a massive live service that no one's really asking for. But if it does really well, I could see Ubisoft saying, hey, there's something here, and then greenlighting a side series of Assassin's Creed games that are actually Assassin's Creed games. Like, you know, the ones that we used to get, like 1, 2, Brotherhood, Unity, all these games that were really fun and totally different from these big open world action RPGs. They kind of just feel like bigger Witcher 3. As for when this big Assassin's Creed could come out, it's supposedly going to be ready at the end of 2022, but it could get pushed into 2023 if they try and make it a little bit bigger and a little bit more full featured. I was honestly surprised that we didn't get a full on like standalone sequel type thing, because with Far Cry, every game since 3 has had something like this. We got Far Cry 3, then we got Blood Dragon, we got Far Cry 4, then we got Primal, which was like Caveman Far Cry 4. It was actually really good. And then we got Far Cry 5, and then we got New Dawn, which was not as good as the other 2 expansion games that came out after. It's just so weird with Ubisoft, because for every game that they put out that's just a big checkboxy open world game like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, as much as people love to complain about Assassin's Creed Valhalla, myself included, it's the best-selling Assassin's Creed game. So really, from a money standpoint, Ubisoft is just looking at the dollars and saying people want these types of games. As much as they complain about them, they still go out and buy them, and that's an unfortunate reality here. And the last story I have for you guys today is that we finally are getting a new firmware update for the PlayStation 5. Now, the marquee feature that everyone is talking about is this Hey PlayStation thing, where they're basically going to build a voice assistant into your PlayStation, and you can kind of launch games, launch parties, do all the stuff that you could do with the PlayStation 4 camera back in the day on your PlayStation 5. And that's cool. But like the other updates we got last year, like the spring update and the SSD update, there's actually some cooler stuff packed away that's almost like secret. So the first thing you can do with this update is pin games to your home screen. So right now, it'll basically give you your most recent games in order of how recently you played them. But if you want to keep a game always at the front, like for me, I'm definitely pinning Destiny to the front of the list here, you'll be able to pin up to 5 games. And they've also increased how many apps can be shown on the home screen up to 14, which is pretty cool. The SSD space on the PS5 might not actually let you have 14 games at once, but knowing that you're able to put that many on the home screen is pretty cool. And they've also added a new feature to the PlayStation 5 library section where you can actually sort it by genre, which is pretty cool. I'm just going to keep it alphabetical though. That's the way I want to do it. Keep it with installed games only in alphabetical order. That is the god tier way to do this. They're still tinkering around with the trophy system on this console, which I like because they've gotten better over time. They've improved the UI, but there's definitely more room for improvement. They don't really go into specifics on what they're changing, but they say they are improving the way that trophies look in the cross media bar, or the game base, I think is what it's called. That little menu that comes up when you hit the PlayStation button. They're improving how trophy cards look there. That's good. good. I just want it to be like the PlayStation 4. I want it instantly accessible like it was on the PlayStation 4, right from the home screen. I think we can figure that one out, Sony. That would be awesome. And another huge feature is that they're changing voice chats to parties, and they're making it so you can set your parties to open or private. If you set them to open, your friends will just be able to jump into a call you're already in, which is actually kind of fun. It's like on Discord, where if you have a group, like I have a group who watches movies all the time, and anyone can kind of just jump in there whenever they want. This seems like it's a little more open than that because your entire friends list can jump in. So you might just have to go through your friends list a little bit, call some of your friends who might just jump into all your calls all the time because you don't want to be talking about one of them and have them jump into the call. That would be pretty embarrassing. But thankfully, there is a way to keep these calls private. So if you just want to talk to one of your friends, there's an easy way to do it. And if you're in a party, they added a new function to the create menu that allows you to share your screen to that party. Love that feature so much on Discord on PC. I'm glad they're adding it to the PlayStation 5 because it's just cool when you're playing a new game and you want to show your friend group how cool it is. You can just share your screen in Discord and you're good to go. The thing that Discord used to let you do is share movies when you were watching them, but every app out there is stopping you from doing that, which sucks. And that's really it for this update. I'm going to be real with you guys. It could be better. I know that we want different features than what they're giving us here. Like we want folders on the home screen. We want to be able to install custom themes. We want a web browser. We want true 1440p resolution on the console. We want Discord real integration. This is all just small stuff they're adding, but hopefully it's just getting this out of the way so they can prime themselves for the next firmware update, because a lot of that stuff, like especially 1440p, that has to be coming. I just don't understand how we're over a year out from the PS5's launch and you can't just plug it into a 1440p monitor and have it work. But like I said, I love software updates. I like when features get added to a console after it's been out for a while because it shows that the people who are making games for the console, Sony, are actually paying attention. They care about this console and they're not just looking to the future. They've still got one eye right on the PS5 where it should be. Anyway guys, that's all I have for you today. Make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below, and remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.